His mom.
Well, he's so. Oh.
Because he's the best. He's the best goalkeeper coach in the world.
Ever.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Let's do this. Welcome to Inside the 18, live from my bunker in Palm Desert, California. I am Michael Magid. With me is 99 World Cup winner Saskia Weber, and joining us. This is insane, dude. I mean, this is such a trip to me. Is we have ESPN's college basketball analyst Sean Farnham, who I watch on the regular on TV. Because I'm a huge basketball guy. Omar's a big basketball guy, and that's why it's unfortunate that he's not on right now. But, dude, Sean, thanks for doing this, man. This is awesome.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I was really excited to get to talk right now about sports in general, since my sport was abruptly cut short in March. It's great to talk about sports, especially one that I've really grown to love in soccer, and to be able to talk to you. And Saskia, who I have just amazing respect for over her entire playing career and what she brings to the table on a daily basis for women's soccer, and is such a positive role model and mentor for so many. It's a tremendous opportunity. Yeah,
and by the way, I'm wearing my UCLA goalkeeper shirt right now, and Saskia's obviously got her UCLA hat on right now. And
as you should. I'd be upset if you didn't. Like, I mean, if I would have come on and you'd been like, "Hey, I'm here with Ian Fuhrer, and we've got nothing but Trojan gear on," I'd be like, I gotta go right now.
No, you know, the funniest thing about that is that, like, right now, like, I've been joking about being in the bunker, but like I am staying during quarantine. I've been staying in Palm Desert where my dad's got a place. And it just so happens to be that there was a UCLA goalkeeper shirt here. This isn't like regular wardrobe for me, like, because that would be kind of awkward if I was just walking around town. People are like, "Did you play UCLA?"
Goalkeeper shirt. It has buttons.
No, but it says goalkeeper. It says UCLA goalkeeper.
It's like the coaching goalkeeper.
Yeah, it's like the coaching. It's like a coaching.
I don't have one of those.
Oh. This
Somebody
was
call Amanda Cromwell on line one.
Yeah, apparently I came into the mix after all the gear had been handed out. So I've got limited stuff right now. They always tease me about it. So.
I mean, you know, one of the cool things about, you know, being involved in like an elite program, you know, like a UCLA for either one of you guys right here, you know, you obviously, you know, playing at UCLA and you coaching at UCLA, is the gear. I mean, that's what I look for.
I still had shoes from the time in which I played at UCLA up until about 3 years ago that were in boxes. Like, I had the original Allen Iverson.
Nice.
It came out in the 1997 NCAA tournament. We were rocking those, and I had actually 2 pairs of those in a box, and I should have sold them, to be honest with you. Like, I think we're out of the jurisdiction of not selling swag and having an NCAA violation, considering it's 20 plus years since I played there. But just look, UCLA was a great place for me to go, not just from a basketball perspective, but also it's where I fell in love with soccer, and that's obviously because of my wife and where I fell in love with her. She was a soccer player, a midfielder / defender for UCLA's women's soccer program. Back at the same time that I was going to college, and I actually proposed to her on the North Athletic Field, which is now the soccer stadium at UCLA, during a practice, and I had worked it out with Jill Ellis that that's how I was going to propose to my wife.
Nice.
And it was fun. So, but I definitely learned a lot about soccer really quickly, and I didn't know anything about soccer, to be honest with you.
I mean, dude, but the thing is, it's like you had the perfect height to be a goalkeeper. So it was like, the thing was just like, did anyone ever say, you know what, man, if only you had, you know, grown up 10 years later, you know, maybe you would have gone a different direction.
I probably would have been corralled into it at an earlier age, and even in the high school level. But we had a pretty good goalkeeper when I was in high school by the name of Aiden Brown.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Who was obviously tremendous. He made the national team. He was going to go to the Olympics before he got injured. And then had to remove himself from that situation, but still does a great job coaching in a lot of different areas. And I believe he's still up in Portland and working with the Timbers and working with the Portland Pilots as a goalkeeping coach. And so he was the goalkeeper. You talk about elite level. I used to go out as a basketball player and watch him be a goal. I had no idea what he was doing, but I just knew that they won like almost every single game when he was in goal. So
let's be honest. When you were at De La Salle, you guys won almost every single game in every sport. I think that's the way it kind of was. That was the De La Salle Spartan mentality right there. Like, I mean, you know, I felt so bad for all those. By the way, yeah, I'm nerding out right now. I'm like Contra Costa, like East Bay, like high school stats from the 90s. But yeah, I mean, like the whole thing with like De La Salle football is like they had to be independent. Like they couldn't even be in the league anymore because they're like, this is not fair in any way.
My senior year of high school, which was the 95-96 season, was the start of the streak that ended up being at 151 games before they lost on the football side of things. And we won the either sectional, league, or state championship or national championship in all but one sport that entire season across the school in every sport. I mean, it was an incredible time to be there. And it was a culture that was cultivating improvement, hard work, and a lot of things that I carried with me when I went to UCLA and then beyond.
I mean, look, one of the things that's really amazing about De La Salle is that even though you guys were elite in so many different sports, a lot of guys actually played multiple sports. Like you had guys on your basketball team who were on the football team. You had guys who went to the NFL and became Pro Bowlers who were on your basketball. I mean, well, the thing is that so here's the funniest thing about
geeking out on this.
Here's the funniest thing is like, so I play basketball, and actually I went to Lavin basketball camp when Sean was a senior, and like all the little guys we used to look up to, you guys, because like, you guys were the big time players getting ready to go to college and all that sort of thing. So like, I remember Sean playing in like, that, whatever they called it, like the NBA or whatever it was, like at the basketball camp for the oldest kids. And so I followed those teams. We used to watch you guys on High School Sports Focus and all that. So it's kind of a trip. And people, by the way, have completely shut down this podcast right now. They're like, "Oh, we thought this was a goalkeeping podcast. This is some dude just."
Normally Michael just sits in the corner and I talk, but I'm sitting here just like.
I think to your point, I think what we've gotten away from is allowing athletes to cross train and do other sports, and I think it's something that is centralizing one's position or sport at a young age is detrimental to the overall growth. When I was in high school, I played basketball. I did the high jump and track. I was a pitcher on the baseball team. I played football my freshman year.
Exactly.
And by the way, it worked out really well for me. And I think that too often right now, we live in a world where we have essentially hype men. Like whether, you're in the soccer world, whether it's these individual trainers, not naming any, but these individual trainers that are making their money.
You mean like guys that like wear masks and don't show their faces, those sorts of people? Like,
well, just that train and then hype them up and like speed up the video and alter the video for highlights to make the person look like their ball skills are unbelievable. And the reality is they can do moves in a drill, but they don't know how to do it on the field.
Right.
And you see the same thing in basketball. And stop with the hype. And people need to understand the reality. And I was looking at some studies and research the other day. Only 3% of all high school or club soccer players end up getting full ride scholarships. 3%. That means 97% do not get full ride scholarships. Yet the money that these parents are pouring in chasing this dream actually can become a detriment to their child's growth and actual ability to achieve at that 3% level. And it's something that we see in basketball, but it's certainly something that you see in soccer as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we've talked about this multiple times, and we had a guy on last week, Brian Dowd, who's going to attempt to play two sports at Notre Dame,
football.
and football and soccer, which is obviously extremely challenging because it's in the same seasons. But we talked about with John Conway in regards to his throwing, and that all became because of baseball. Obviously, Tony Miola, like you were talking about, he was a drafted by the Yankees. I mean,
and me, I was multi-sport.
But I think one of the reasons why we wanted to have you on, Sean, is because we wanted to talk about how all these other sports, playing all these other sports, can actually benefit you in, if you want to call it your main sport. You shouldn't look at it, and all these coaches out there, and that's my concern is like, and this with basketball, these year-round kids now, especially in the AAU circuit, and now with foregoing college basketball to just train for a year to get ready for a draft and all that sort of thing, is like they're not really able to improvise is best. I guess best way I put it is they can improvise because their muscles have been so tuned into doing certain movements, certain activities that when they have to do something unorthodox, they can't do it.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about the fact that even after I got into college and I was just playing soccer and didn't go to play lacrosse, I trained with the women's basketball team at Rutgers in the winter. I did. I mean, like, look, if I couldn't get into but it was also my trainer was like, I'm doing footwork with the basketball team, get down, get on and Vivian and those guys would be like, yes, come on, do footwork with the basketball team. I mean, look, I was not a good shooter or anything like that, but I was there and I was doing it and I was doing the movements because they're so similar to goalkeeping. Your body weight, staying low, everything, the footwork's so similar that it was an easy fit for me. But coming from a multi-sports background, I wasn't awkward. It wasn't unusual to me. It was like, okay, like whether it was lacrosse or basketball or whatever, it was like, okay, let's do it. And, that just helped me get onto the national team. That just helped me develop as a well-rounded athlete.
And to your point, I mean, the way I approach it with my kids, and I have 3 kids. My daughter is a goalkeeper, and she's over 5'10", and she's just turned 13 years old. And so there's often, you sit there and go, okay, well, what do you know? How can I train my daughter? And she's been very fortunate to be around a lot of great coaches. And I credit Rich Gomez, who is a goalkeeping coach for the SoCal Blues, who did a tremendous job teaching a lot of the technique, which I don't know the specific techniques or angles or how to do that. But what I started looking at as I was watching training was there, as Saskia, you were just saying, there is actually a ton of crossover with basketball and goalkeeping.
Especially as far with footwork.
No question. When you're playing defense, you don't cross your feet over one another. You got to be able to push, drive, and slide. And in soccer, it's very similar. When you are going out of goal on a corner kick, if you actually look at the footwork, it's the same as going up for a layup, except for you're going up with 2 hands instead of going up, eventually with one. And so what I've tried to do with my daughter is that once I started figuring that out,
and the timing,
I started incorporating a lot of it. Look, jump stop. What does a set position look like as a goalkeeper? Looks a lot like if you jump stop waiting for a pass, right? Your hands are down, you're ready, your feet. You've got to be set before you can make a save.
Right, you're not flat-footed, your body weights forward.
Yep. And if you're flat-footed or your feet are moving, like if you're posting up, do I post up like this? Where I'm like moving side to side? No, I lock in and I'm ready to go, and I'm posting up being strong, and your body is strong in that position. And that's one of the things that I've really started working with my daughter. And luckily, again, you're talking about having a lot of great mentors, a lot of great people that have been around her, a lot of strong female mentors that I think is really important for her to see. But, I'll have her go out and say, okay, my oldest son is shooting shots. You got to rebound, and you got to catch the ball at its highest point. And next thing you know, everything is about explosion and strength and
timing. And her catching at their highest point, not on your way down, it's on your way up. It's the same thing. And that's, I think that is going to benefit her so much. Eye-hand coordination, catching the ball, reaching for the ball, don't letting the ball hit you, everything, like somebody's passing the ball in basketball, you're reaching and catching it. You're not allowing the ball to come into here. And that, again, that crossover will set her aside from other people that are just bogged down in one thing, in one sport.
Yep. And I put her in leagues all the time. And for basketball, she's played in a lot of rec leagues. And it's hilarious because, like Saskia was saying, like, she's not a shooter.
I'm not a shooter.
She's not a shooter. But what I tell her is, I say, hey, listen, as tall as you are, I'm not going to put you in the middle of a zone defense around the bucket. That does no good for you. So instead, I'm going to put you out top against the smaller, quicker guards. And I want you to utilize your length, your wingspan, your anticipation as they go to make a pass. Can you get your hand out and deflect that ball, and so that your teammate gets the steal, or you deflect it and then you chase it down and beat them to the ball, and then you grab it and then try to dribble it in and see if you can score a layup. And you might miss 7 shots in a row and just sit there and throw it against the backboard 7 times, but on the 8th time you're going to make it. But it's those type of situations. What I've seen is increased level of footwork, better balance, better explosion. And as she's growing and she's maturing a little bit more, the muscle is starting to develop, which allows even for that core strength development, which is so imperative for jumping. A lot of people forget one of the best attributes you can have for reacting in your quick twitch muscles and your explosion is actually your core. because that's where you're coiling everything. And a lot of people go, oh, I'm just going to do a bunch of squats. Well, squats are fine. You need to have leg strength. There's no doubt about that. But like, it's to me, it's about
everything comes through your body. Yeah.
Yep.
No, yeah. And plus it's also that reaction. I mean, it's seeing that ball come like being passed by the other team and like anticipating, reading it, getting that quick jump on it, whether you can steal the ball or whatever. And it's the same thing as in goalkeeping, whether it's with a through ball or something like that. It's being proactive. It's kind of leaning into it, and when it goes, being ready to go with that fast twitch, and also not being like a second behind, but being kind of a split second ahead. And basketball gives that. And like I said, I played basketball. Not well, but I played basketball for a short time in high school, and but that was what was benefited me. Like was that, and like I said, I'm not a shooter, and layups, yeah, fine, but I'm not a shooter. What I did do, and Michael knows this, is when I was at Rutgers, I used to go onto the court, and I tell this story all the time, but I used to go onto the court with a bag of soccer balls, and I used to do half court and full court shots with one arm and a sling throw, just to work on my power with my throw, also coming over the top with a backspin and everything, because if it hit the backboard properly with a backspin, it will drop into the basket. And I used to do that for like an hour. And just throw, back it up, throw. It also, you can't, like a lot of kids today, they'll throw and they'll move their shoulder away. You have to keep it like on a direct line and everything like that. And it forces you to throw properly as a goalkeeper.
Yeah. I just want to call this episode Elite Athletes Talk About the Benefits of Being Really Good at Sports. I want to talk I want to name it. I would name it that, because I'm just like sitting here just listening. I'm like, man, it must be nice to be able to do all these things with your body. That's fantastic. No, I also obviously came from a basketball background as well too, and I felt like that's why it was easy for me to, because I went to goalkeeping later on in life. I started focusing on goalkeeping later on in life, mainly just because basketball just didn't seem like it was going to be a college option for me, and so I wanted to be a collegiate athlete. I mean, I would love to say that was literally anything other than the fact of just like, it sounded cool to be a college athlete. So what can I be a college athlete at? And then I got really into it, obviously, once I got to college. But one thing that I think we haven't been talking about yet, which I'm sure, Sean, you're going to attest to this, is how tactically similar basketball and soccer are. And that's something that a lot of people don't focus on. They focus on the fact it's like you're talking about the lateral movements in regards to the footwork and, going up for rebounds and how similar that is to crosses and the set stance and stuff like that. But the actual angle play, the actual movement of the ball is really similar. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, it's the geometry of the game, right? And as a keeper, you're never going to be the primary defensive player, right? You're always the secondary defensive player. It's like we're working in the help side on a basketball court. The primary defensive player, hopefully they do their job and they don't get to the rim. But if they get to the rim, you better know how to react and put out that fire as quickly as you possibly can. And I think that's one thing that tactically is exactly the same in the game. And you've got to understand, where you are on the court when you're playing basketball. Just as much as goalkeeper, you got to understand where that line is. I watch a lot of soccer games now, and I go to a lot of these tournaments with my daughter, and we watch a lot of the older keepers. We've gone to plenty of college games, and my daughter's been able to talk to people like Tegan Micah or Katie Meyer from Stanford, who have obviously enjoyed. Tegan's over on the national team in Australia, and Katie just won a national championship at Stanford this past season, and to be able to.
We don't talk about that.
Yeah, I love that. I was just looking at I was looking at Saskia's face. We're doing that, and I know you guys.
Because he can talk about it because he's a Bruin, but I'm just like, oh.
No, I know.
I wasn't coaching yet then.
Yeah, it brings up bad memories for Bruins. I get that, but these are strong women that understand the position and have been very giving of their time to younger keepers. Just as I had older players that I looked up to, like I had Brent Berry talk about positioning on the basketball court because he was a De La Salle guy. Joe McClain, who is one of the best financial guys in the world now, but also played basketball at Arizona. And these were guys that I relied on heavily to help me. And I think that there's a lot of similarities in rotating, putting out fires, understanding positioning, understanding the angles. The geometry of the game is very similar to that in which we see in basketball, especially as a goalkeeper when you've got this massive net behind you. and you're trying to figure out, okay, how do I take away the angle for this shooter? I mean, because if it's a 1v1 situation and they're at the 18 mark and you're not coming off your line right away, whatever it may be, the advantage is to the shooter. So how do you close that down? How do you break it down so that you're putting yourself in the best position possible to take the right angle, to take all those movements away? And I think there's a lot of similarity. And when you watch film, and that's something that my daughter and I do a lot of, is we watch a lot of film, whether it be from practices and or games. Okay, a couple things. Like, one, it starts with your base. Was your base quiet? Were you confident? Were you solid in your base, or were you moving and making yourself small, or not strong, not explosive?
Presence big. Yeah.
Yep.
I have a question. I have a question about that as well, though. But do you find that defensively? Because I'm not gonna pretend that I know that much about basketball and stuff, other than what I know footwork wise. And
come on, you're
like
elite.
I know. So defensively, as a goalkeeper and as defense, what the similarities, like when the other team is coming down, you're trying to manipulate what they do instead of just allowing them to run plays around you. And so I'm assuming that it's the same. And so, like you said, that first defender, the keeper or is the secondary defender, is they're trying to manipulate it so you can make that steal, so you can push them into a corner, so you can kind of disrupt what they're doing. And that is exactly what, a defense and a goalkeeper is trying to do in soccer.
Think about if we're in a press situation in basketball, right? And we're in a 2-2-1 press. The goalkeeper is the one. What is the one's responsibility in basketball? It's to protect the goal, right? It's not to give up a layup. What is the keeper's responsibility? Protect the goal. Don't give up the shot, right? And so there's multitude of things that are transferable. When you're the back line of a press, you get to see everything.
Right.
And so not only are you taking the angles and trying to guess the angles and anticipate that as it's coming down, but it's also your responsibility as seeing all to communicate and help others get into the right position. That's the same exact thing that you see in soccer. When my daughter's in goal, her biggest area of growth probably in the last year, besides just, hands and because she's getting older and stronger in that regard, but being able to hold on and keep the save rather than just making contact with it, is understanding the communication aspect and organizational of reading the game. If you are not elite in reading the game from the goalkeeping position, in my opinion, you're not elite.
Not at all.
You can be the best shot stopper. You could have great feet, but if your defense is not well organized and they don't know where they're supposed to be, and you're not in control out on that field, and you're not letting them know where the run is coming,
you're going to get scored. Period.
No question.
You're going to get
giving up goals.
Yeah, and the bottom line is, what do we always say? Is the best save is no save at all, because your defense is so organized, the shot doesn't get off. Second best save is just manipulating a situation with your defense, understanding your communication so that you make the easiest save possible. You give them the worst angle possible because your defense is organized and that's your communication. Those are the best saves you can make in soccer.
Look, when I played at UCLA in basketball and we played against North Carolina, and this is the other thing that I talk to my daughter about a lot, is know what the player's strengths and weaknesses of the team you're going against. Look, you might play somebody that you've never seen before, but relatively quickly, you're going to find out who's the burner on that team. Who are they trying to feed the ball to? And then you can shift and shade just ever so slightly and make sure that defensive player is staying a little bit more attached or gapping and giving the space necessary so that they don't get beat right away.
And sometimes you might even have to switch. You might have to switch.
And when we played North Carolina against Vince Carter, I promise you, I was shading towards Vince Carter. Like, I'm not trying to get dunked on that.
Oh my God, that was young Vince Carter, who could literally just leap over this house right now if he wanted to.
It's unbelievable.
I want to talk about this with both of you guys right here, because I think a lot of it, one of the issues that we have here is in regards to the culture of social media and the culture of highlights, and this is both in basketball and soccer. Kids are not learning how to read the game because they're not being influenced by actually watching off the ball movement. They're focused on the ball because those are the plays that are on social media. That's a highlight, House of Highlights and Ball is Life and all that sort of thing, right? So they're not actually watching what's actually taking place in the game. They're watching the player with the ball, who's the least important person right now.
Right. I think Billy Donovan was probably the best ever. Again, coaching is coaching. And I think there's a lot of transition. You talk about Ziggy Schmidt, who passed away recently, was a great family friend of ours. And I used to talk to him and go up when he was coaching at the Sounders. And I'd go up there and watch those games and spend hours talking to him about leadership, because so much of coaching is leadership and understanding situations. Billy Donovan was the guy for me in college basketball. When he was at the University of Florida, he asked his team one time after a game, and one player in particular, said, okay, how often do you think the ball is in your hand when you're out on the floor? He's like, probably 85%. And Billy Donovan started laughing.
I love that.
The number was.
Did you mean to pause like that?
Did he really? And the player really said 85%.
Yes.
85%.
He thought that when he was out on the court that he had the ball, and he goes, no, it's 5%. So what are you doing with the other 95% of the time that you're out there on the field? The problem with youth sports and where we've gotten, and this is across the board, this is not just soccer centric, but I see it a lot in soccer. There are some players that have gone on at 13 years of age and have hyped themselves up and gotten agents and blown off opportunities to play in college. And maybe it works out for them in the end. I don't know. But I certainly know they're skipping steps, and their focus is on them and not the team. We have forgotten about the importance of winning a lot in sports, and we have forgotten about the opportunities of doing the little things that can help your team win. What are those little things? What are the intangibles? What are the leadership qualities that need to happen? Look, when you're competing at the elite level in college soccer, whether it's at UCLA, whether it's at North Carolina, whether it's at Stanford, or Florida State, who won the national championship a year before. There's a lot of great programs.
Man, you really have been paying attention. This is.
I do.
Yeah,
this definitely should.
And then he brings up Florida State.
However, Florida State did lose at Bank of California this past season to UCLA Bruins.
I know. I was
there. There you go. Just want to make sure I'm paying attention. But whoever those programs are, those college coaches want winners. They want people that are invested in the totality of the team. And that's the culture that is necessary to be successful at the highest of levels. Anybody can put together a highlight tape. Look, I can go to a youth soccer field, and I see these all the time. And one girl makes one move and scores a goal, and they show that like reverse angle twice, slow it down, hype music behind it, wah, wah,
yeah.
DJ, and like everybody's like, oh my gosh, that was unbelievable. But they don't show is that same player getting beat 7 times or being out of position.
Or being out of position, or being upset in the corner because they didn't get the ball. Like something yes, and exactly. And number one, it's why it's good to see those players in person. But I agree with you 100%. The reason the success for those schools and any team is a group of individuals that are there for a team, and they're there. If you're the sixth man on the bench, you're just as important as a starting lineup. If you're last player, goalkeeper on the bench, or the last player on the bench in soccer, you're just as important. What you bring to practice, what you bring at the moment's notice that you have to go in, and it's the work you do off the field, off the ball, everything that makes the difference. I was thinking about like a wide receiver in football. If you think about it that way, how many runs does a wide receiver make during a game, and how many catches does he actually make? Yep. And so you'll be like in the fourth quarter, and they'll be like, that's its first catch of the game, but
I don't want that guy on my fantasy team. That's not the guy.
All those runs and all that movement, he did open something up for somebody else on his team to receive a ball. And that work that he's putting in is the reason the other wide receiver or the running back or somebody had a hole to run through. And being selfless like that is what makes a great team.
How many screens does a player set during the game? I mean, to help their teammate get open. I mean, it's the little things like that from basketball. It's the exact same thing in soccer. As you mentioned, the wide receiver world. It's a great analogy because you might only get one catch, but it might be the best catch. And sometimes in sports too, you got to take your opportunity, right? And if you're not ready and you just like assume like this is your role, or you have a loser mentality or a weak mentality mentally to be able to bring your personal best on a daily basis, if something happens, you're not going to be ready for the call when the call comes, whether it be an injury, a concussion, an ACL.
But playing for the U.S. national team is a great analogy as well. How many shots does the U.S. national team goalkeeper actually see in a game? And, you're playing for the best team in the world. And sometimes, and I used to say the worst days for me would be no saves and one goal against, and I would be like, that one moment that comes, you have to be ready for. And whether it's in the 90th minute or in the first minute or whatever, but you have to be dialed in. And the rest of the time, you're there, you're helping your team, you're doing good distribution, you're doing good communication and everything like that. And you might just make one save, you might make no saves, but you have to be dialed in on all those levels.
Yeah, no, I think you guys are both bringing up really good points. And I want to talk about the competition level, about bringing your best, because obviously, Sean, when we grew up playing basketball, things were a little bit different in regards to people still took their high school season seriously. That was still a thing that was important. And we've been discussing this on the show. By the way, there's so many similarities in regards to youth soccer and youth basketball right now in regards to the club system, whether you're talking about AAU or you're talking about, ECNL, it's basically the same type of thing. A lot of times you're getting a lot of players who all they care about is showcasing themselves to play at the next level, rather than trying to put anything together and recognizing that those intangibles that they're learning during that time period are actually what's going to get them to that next level. But they're so focused more on me.
What's the name? What's the father with the three sons?
Oh, LeVar Ball.
That was someone was supposed to go to UCLA and all that
stuff.
Yeah. I mean, that I think is the epitome of what you're saying. It was me, my sons, me, LeVar, and stuff like that. Where are his sons right now? And no offense on the sons, but it's not you're not going to succeed. I'm sorry, you're not.
Well,
I would go back to kind of what your mentality is, and that's one of the things that we talk a lot about in our house with all three of our children. Is what is your reasoning for playing sport? Yeah. Like what is your calling? Like you say, this is what you want to do. Why is it what you want to do? If you want to do this for your personal glory, then you're not doing it for the right reason. You're never going to get to what your goals are if you're not doing it for the we and you're just doing it for the me. And like when I consistently ask my daughter, I say, okay, so what's your goal in soccer? She goes, I want to win a national championship. I want to win it. And she just changed clubs and went to Real SoCal. Geographically, for us to be able to drive from where we live, it was a lot easier for us to do this drive. And with the DA system, what it was, and then now it's gone. Now they're going to have an opportunity to play high school soccer as well if they so choose. And I think that's a benefit for the mentality of I want to win. I want to play for my school.
It just means more
for myself.
Yeah,
I want to play for others.
We have been discussing that constantly, and the fact that you don't, and I'll repeat this again, you don't get what you get when you play for high school, and there's high school pride behind it, and there is walking through those halls the next day when you win, or the day of the game, wearing your uniform and your friends out at the games and all of that. It is something that it cannot be, it does not happen in club soccer. And it's a bunch of parents in folding chairs. I'm sorry. And there's pride in club soccer. Yes, there is, but there's a different kind of pride when you're playing for your school, your peers and everything. And I think it is so important, because when you go from club soccer and 20 parents in folding chairs and you step on the field for UCLA and it's a sold out stadium and you're playing for your school and your peers, and you haven't experienced that and what that pride means and stuff, you're in for an awakening.
I mean, and Sean, obviously you do analysis, for some of the top college programs, in this country, for ESPN in regards to the basketball side. How many of those kids who are coming from that youth circuit get to high level college basketball and like Derek Cameron, and they're like, I've never seen it. I've never experienced anything
like
this
deer in
before.
headlights.
Yeah.
Look, we've seen, and a lot is being made because some of these guys are going straight to the G League right now and making money, and that's fine. And people talk about, well, what happens when they're allowed to go straight from high school to the NBA? It was that way when I was in high school. I mean, Kobe Bryant graduated high school the same year I graduated high school. My first pickup game at UCLA, Kobe Bryant was on my team as a Laker. And it doesn't ruin college athletics. I promise you, college athletics will be just fine. And what you see is there's a lot of guys that come up with high expectations and high hype, and they never meet those expectations because they stop working. They feel like they've accomplished something at such an early age because we build these lists as top 100s and top 60s and top 25s and top drawers, top recruits for top to 2022.
Look at Freddie Adu.
Yeah. This is a prime example.
And again, we can name the successes. That's how few there are, the Kobe Bryants and stuff like that. That's how few there are. So if you're setting yourself up when you're in your high school going, it's all about me, I'm just going to bypass this, I'm going to go to the gym. We can name how many people that's worked for. And I'm not saying everybody has to go to college or everybody, I mean, I think they should, but I think at the same time, it's that mentality of like you said, why are you doing this?
I mean, look on the basketball side, and just let me indulge for a second right here, Saskia, on the basketball side, because how often do I get Sean Farnham in front of me? Is that I'm more okay with them joining the G League and still developing and still being involved in a competitive environment than I'm going to train for a year and then join and then enter the draft type of thing, because that scared me when I started hearing about players that were going to do that as opposed to opt to go play college basketball, and did you feel kind of the same way about that? Or
I think the numbers are just so low in that regard that it never really impacted the game as far as I'm concerned. Okay. And a lot of times those people go away and they never come back, and we don't hear from them again because there is something to be said for the marketability in college athletics.
Absolutely.
I mean, Zion Williamson, people forget Zion was really good. And that was clear coming out of high school. He had a lot of followers on Instagram. Zion was not the preseason pick for number one in the NBA draft. I mean, everybody said it was RJ Barrett, and Zion was somewhere around 4 or 5. And then he went to Duke, and it just got silly, right? It just got silly. The hype machine.
Everybody knows. I know who he is.
Right. And how many G League highlights do you see on SportsCenter?
No, I couldn't name a single. Obviously, because of college basketball and the exposure of it and everything, yes, I can name college basketball players. Can I name G League basketball players? No, I'm sure you can. You're an analyst, but I can't. And I think personally, I would be like, if I was that elite coming out of high school, I would go play college for a year or two.
Yeah. And look, but I am in favor to each their own and how they want to go about the process. If you choose to do that, I don't think that we have to protect people from making bad decisions. If you're going to make a bad decision, you're probably going to make a bad decision, whether it be right now or whether it be 4 years from now.
Sure.
And so therefore you have to be accountable for what you do, and I think this is a unique time in sports anyways. I mean, look at all of us and how we're communicating and how we're living our lives right now. It is distinctly different than where it was even 8 weeks ago. And my challenge that I put out to my kids was really simple during this quarantine was, what are you going to do to separate yourself?
Yeah.
Like, what is your plan? We all have personal goals. Yes, the we aspect of sports is good, but your personal growth, what are some of your personal growth goals that you have for yourself? How do you plan on attempting to get there? And if you simply do what your Zoom practices are right now, you're not passing up anybody. You're not. You're actually going to be falling behind because there are others that are putting in a greater level of work, that are showing a commitment and a love for their sport. If you want to be elite, all this stuff that we're talking about, positioning, hands, set, footwork, agility, power, strength, catching, all these things that are imperative to being an excellent goalkeeper, right? All that comes down to often is your heart, your mental and your heart. If you've got a strong mentality and you've got a heart and a desire to be better than everybody else, to put in your work, to outwork the competition, then the rest will fall in alignment. And that's been the challenge that I put out to my kids. And I've been amazed, truly amazed with their commitment level, to not just be satisfied with, okay, well, my coach sent me and said I need to do this.
Right.
All right. Okay, well, that's your coach trying to keep you guys just together. Yeah. But when what's going to happen is when fields get opened up and teams come back together, it is going to be very evident who worked, and who didn't.
And who put in the extra work.
Well, I mean,
and I say that to my kids for club as well. I'm like, look, yeah, you have your Zoom meeting with me on Friday and stuff, and you have Zoom meetings with your teams. But what else are you doing? Like, are you just clocking in because I told you to, or are you really preparing yourself? Like, you have a lot of time in the day right now, and I know you're, and now that schools are shutting down with their Zooms and stuff, now you have a lot of time in the day. So what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? And I'm not telling you have to play soccer every single day. And I'm very adamant about that. And I'll say, go out and play some basketball. I'll be like, go swimming, go for a run, go for a bike ride. Like, do something else. You don't have to do soccer every day. Yes, you have to get it in, but be an athlete and train. But when you do it, don't go through the motions. And that's the other thing I tell them. I'm like, don't just go through the motions because your coach gave you something to do. Okay, I have to do like this many hits against the wall. Like, yeah, nobody's watching you. Guess what? You're doing it by yourself. So you can skate through it and you can just clock in the time and say, okay, I did it. Or you can actually work and like push yourself. And it will become evident when they come back who did that.
Yeah, there's a coach that my daughter worked with at one point in time that told her that she needed to get a volleyball, basically. And that she needed to have a wall that she could use on a consistent basis. And so her uncle and I went out and we built one. We went to Home Depot and we built it, and then we had her spray paint it with her aspirations as making it that volleyball is her vision board.
Oh my God, you're amazing.
No way. Wow.
You're amazing.
So she goes out in the backyard, and again, this coach was an incredibly motivational person that was highly successful in their individual career. And she goes out there and she throws it against the wall in different angles and it's just working on her hands. And she comes in and I say, hey, I don't have to tell her, but she goes out and does it. And I say, hey, just 300 catches this. She'll come back in the house like 45 minutes later, dripping wet.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, what are you doing? Like, how long you were out there this whole time? She goes, yeah, I got 888 catches. That was my goal today. I said, how'd you come up with that number? She goes, just felt good. And my number's 8. So I just want to do 888 catches.
I love it. And I used to do that.
Good.
But I used to do the same thing. Like especially even as I got older and we didn't have a pro league and stuff I'd be home and my parents I'll be like, take a ball, and I'll be like, I'll be back. And I'd go, we had tennis courts by our house, and you have the tennis wall with the line, and I'd be out there and I'd just be like, throw, volley, like, everything, hands. And I'd come back an hour and a half later. Mom's like, what have you? I've been like, just getting my work in. Nobody told me to do it. We didn't have anything. We didn't have internet then. Don't everybody freak out, but we didn't have internet then. So I didn't have like Zoom meetings, and I didn't have like PowerPoints for coaches to send these things to me, and you just get it done because it's in your head and in your heart. And I love that she picks random numbers because I used to do that too.
I want to talk about this right now because you guys had been bringing up repetitions in regards to the throwing and all that sort of stuff. I want to focus on the offensive aspect of goalkeeping now and distribution and passing and how it's similar to in basketball. Obviously the goalkeeper is the first line of attack. You're when you have the ball, you're the first player on it. First player
that from me, by the way.
He stole that. Who? I stole that from you?
He stole that from me.
I did. I thought I stole it from a T-shirt. I'm pretty sure I stole it from a T-shirt in like '98. But anyway, maybe that was yours. You have to look into you might want to look into the trademark of that, Sask. But Sean, have you noticed that? And what advice do you give to goalkeepers in regards to from your understanding of the game, passing wise? Because I think it's very similar.
To me, people go back and when I played at UCLA, one of the things I was most proud of, and this is going to sound crazy to people because we judge a lot of times based on like your point production, right? I was not a scorer in college, and with good reason because I had 7 NBA players around me who needed me to score. But
set a lot of picks though. Set a lot of picks.
Set a lot of picks, and one of the biggest things I did was ball reversal. If you would go ask Steve Lavin and say, hey, what did Sean do really well at the top of the offense when he popped out after setting that screen and caught the ball at the top? The timing of the ball reversal that led to that cross screen underneath, so that Matt Barnes, Jerome Moiso, who was a lottery pick for the Celtics, Dan Gadzuric, as he was good Zurich when he played with me, but Gadzuric when he was in the pros for 7 years, so they could they could get that cross screen and come on the block and boom, we hit them right away, dunk down, and they get an easy pass. It's the same thing in soccer, okay, except for you're doing it with your feet. Like, how fast can you switch the field? Do you have vision? Because also, say I go to ball reversal and I'm just a robot and go, okay, I'm switching the field. Boom. Oh, there's a person there, and they jump the lane on me. You're done. You're done.
Yeah.
And so one of the big things, like, and this, again, I think this benefits my daughters having my wife who played soccer at UCLA and was a midfielder, a forward, a defensive player. She was a utility player. The ability to understand development of your feet and how important and how imperative. The game of soccer has changed. The way goalkeepers are now versus even how they were back when Saskia was playing is completely different. And the way that they're being used as now a person that's initiating the offense and playing out of the back and playing it forward, playing it back, and trying to keep those triangles. Very much as we watched The Last Dance, and we're talking about Tex Winters and Phil Jackson. All of sports does come down to triangles and shapes. And can you keep your shape down the field as it moves? Is that triangle moving with you and giving you options to play forward, back, left, right? And are you communicating your way through to give yourself the best example? And I think that that's been a big part of my understanding now of watching soccer. When I watch soccer, I watch things really differently than I used to watch soccer. And I've become much more invested and much more in love with the sport. And a lot of that comes from seeing the similarities in the counterattack and how that can foster and how a goalkeeper plays a pivotal role. You know, you have to have elite. I used to think like the goalkeepers were the least athletic people on the field, and now like now I think they have to be like understand the position. They actually have to be the most athletic person on the field. They have to have the all of the quick twitch muscles, all of the foot skills. They have to be able to make saves with hands and their feet. Like I used to think like, wait, you make saves with your feet? Like now I'm seeing my daughter go out and do like these crazy K saves. And I'm like, wow, like
look at him with the terminology.
Yeah.
I'm learning.
I like it. I like it.
That's a shout out to Big Cat and Neil Thompson.
I love it.
But you know, you learn these things and you start to understand like the intricacies of the position and just how an elite level athlete you have to be in modern soccer. And as the sports world changes. And look, kids are well trained at a younger age than they've ever been in their life, and sometimes that leads to burnout, overuse injuries. All those things are true, which is why swimming, as Saskia said, is a great workout to do. You want to work on your conditioning, you want to work on some strength development without beating your joints into the ground. And
different, and it fires different muscles that you're not used to using, which as 100%, a goalkeeper,
it's a total body workout.
Oh my gosh.
I love it.
And jump in the pool, grab a kickboard and go, and then swim some freestyle and some with a breaststroke. And you just start developing upper body strength, and you're building lean muscle mass, not bulky muscle mass. Look, Saskia and I, we were like athletes in the 90s. Like the level of how they worked us out when you strength trained, we were doing football workouts.
Oh, God,
we weren't doing like the workouts that the soccer teams are doing now.
We were doing clean and jerks and like major, and it was like heavy. It wasn't. We were doing Russian bench press, and it was
oh my
Russian bench press. Oh yeah.
Hold on. What's a Russian bench press? I need to know what this is.
It was like you start and you keep building and building. Like so, you'd start with like plates, and it'd be like you get 10, and then more plates, and be like 8, and then more plates, and be like finally and you do like 1.
Dude, that straight up sounds like something that would be in like The Program, like that movie from the 90s, like that. Like,
or Rocky 4.
What are you doing? Yeah. Like it's and I get like now it's you need to be quick, light on your feet, lean, agile, and everything like that. You don't, you're not, I mean, look at Tony. Tony Miola is the perfect. I mean, Tony was like a beast. I mean, that's his genes and stuff like that. But that's also how we grew up. I mean, even back when like stuff like shakes and stuff came in, like the way they tell you to drink your shakes was like the way a lineman would drink their shakes, like have 4 a day or something.
Oh my God.
More protein.
Creatine, whatever.
God, I remember when I was playing. My first year in college. I'm about 154 right now. I was 182 by the end of my freshman year because I was taking like all these EAS products and metrics products and stuff like that.
And you're just lifting and I was
lifting like
your alignment.
But by come spring ball, my first step was so slow because literally I had been training and completely, and it's just amazing how things have changed in regards to, and I give that a lot of credit to, go ahead. I was just gonna say I was give credit a lot to like Exos and like Bridge Athletic, like Athletes Performance, those types of things, because they started making training programs that were task specific.
But I mean, myself, I stepped away from it. Like my personal training, we focused on footwork and stuff like that, and it was higher reps and later. But like after that, and then I would go out twice a week and train with a Rutgers track coach. And I would be doing like 400s, 100s, and everything like that. And just because, guess what, everybody, I had to pass every single fitness test that Mia Hamm and Brandy Chastain and everybody else did, and Michelle Akers, as well as all my goalkeeping fitness. So like, there was no skirting by it. There was no, oh, well, I'm a goalkeeper. I have a different job on the field. No, you're an athlete and you're going to the best athletes on the field. And this is our base and you have to pass this fitness test. So, thank God we curbed all that because, Russian lifts wouldn't have got me through it.
Well, I think part of that is, okay, like I think the uses of ladders is really important, and cones, whatever you want to do to kind of get your feet on, staying on your toes, chopping it and getting through quickly and staying on balance during all of that. Another thing, I think it's simple, right? But yet we forget so much about it because we want to use the new techniques. So I think sometimes we go too far on I've got a brand new way of training you. I think sometimes we just need to stop reinventing the wheel. To me, one of the best total workouts and one of the things that I've really worked on with my daughter is jump rope.
Oh my God, thank you.
Saskia brings it up all the time.
Thank you. I tell every single one of my keepers, do you have a jump rope? Do you have a jump rope?
And so my daughter will go out and she'll jump rope for 5 minutes a day. Like, it doesn't seem like a lot, but just doing that.
And whether
it's one of the greatest workouts.
One foot, one leg, then the other leg, then multiple, then alternating feet and everything. And I tell my keepers, like, if you're going to want it, you could do it as a warm up before you start. You could do it after you do some fitness. Like, you do it as a warm up before you do your goalkeeping stuff. All it does, it's such a good workout. Period.
Yep. And it's core strength training. It's building your ability for explosive quick twitch muscles, which is all the things that you need to be an elite level goalkeeper. My son that does basketball, he does it as well, and they switch off. So I'll have him switch off. I'll say, okay, hey, you got 100. And he does 100 real quick and hands the jump rope to his sister, and his sister does 100, and then he hands it back. I said, okay, now we're alternating for 100. Alternate for 100. Do give it back. Okay, left leg for 50, right leg for 50.
Exactly.
And you give it back and forth, and so you do give a little bit of a break. And look, there's frustration involved in it when you're just learning how to do it. You want to be like, oh, this is hard. Like, this is not easy. I don't want to do this. And then all of a sudden you see week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4.
And you see yourself speeding up. Yeah, you see yourself speeding up. You don't get the jump rope doesn't stop. Your arms aren't getting tired because guess what, guys? This can get a little tired. And that coordination just kicks in. And it's so good. And you don't have to do it for a long time. It's for 5 minutes. It's a good workout. I love it. I love you said that. I love it.
I want to talk about this right now because we were talking about obviously the benefits of basketball training and basketball drills in regards to for goalkeepers. Are there any specific drills, Sean, that you would recommend a goalkeeper out there go out? Let's say they've got friends who play basketball and they're out there right now during the quarantine. I know some of the states are starting to ease up on things, so some people are starting to be able to go out to the parks and the playgrounds and all that sort of thing, and their friends are messing around and they're doing some drills that their basketball coaches told them. Which ones should they hop into?
I think defensive slides, lateral quickness, be on your feet. Like, I'll have my daughter play defense on her 15-year-old brother who plays high school basketball and club level basketball, and say, okay, your responsibility. I want your arms out wide. I don't want them down low, which is different than soccer. Obviously, as a goalkeeper, you don't want to stand there like this with your arms out like that. But you want to be able to move laterally and no crossing of your feet. And like, look, if you can keep somebody, and how tight can you guard him and try to force him to go east-west versus north-south, that's going to benefit you all of a sudden when you go back into goal. And I think that if there's any goalkeeper that has any friends that play basketball, get in a stance, get in your set position. Just start in your set position. It doesn't have to be exactly like a basketball stance, but get in your set goalkeeping position. Use your feet to try to keep that person in front of you and just see how hard it is to do that. And if you do it consistently enough, even if you're getting beat, you're going to become much quicker. and you're going to continue to learn more about angles and how you can keep that angle and keep them in front of you. And I think those things can be easily transferred over into the net.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's absolutely fantastic.
We do cross our feet, but only in a bigger area. Not in
a much bigger area. Not
when you have to get across the key.
No, well,
we have to get across the key, cross over, then get into your shuffle.
Exactly.
But before we go, Sean, and thanks for taking all the time. I know we've had some technical issues.
Are you kidding me?
So.
I want him to come build me a wall with my goals on it.
I know. I wanted to go through basketball drills with him. By the way, my goal in life before all this was apparently not my goal in life. Earlier on in my life, it was to be a college basketball coach. So, and I know that you got to experience that for a little bit before you went into broadcasting. And so, I think you saw the same thing as me, as when you went into coaching. You said, "Oh, you know what? This media side, this is a lot more fun to hang out here."
I tell people every day. So I'll go to a game at Rupp Arena with Kentucky, and I'll be done with the game, and the hotel's actually attached to the arena. It's unbelievable. And so game's over, boom, we're out of the table, and we're back up in the hotel. Having a pop and having some food, talking about what we did, and we're like, oh man! And as I always joke, every time we're done with the broadcast, hey, you were really good tonight. Hey, thanks, man, you were really good too. Like everybody's all saying they're great, right? The funny thing is, these coaches, even if you win the game, and Saskia, you know this, you win the game, you're immediately on to the next game and breaking down that film, and then calling recruits.
And what are we doing tomorrow?
Yeah, there's never any time to even actually.
And it's also like we won the game, but
yeah.
We won the game 3-1. We won the game 3-1.
Really not happy with that. The breakdown on here and there and the other.
We got beat down the right side 3 times. And
come on,
next game,
come on, Sean. Right after the broadcast.
I think the only game I've ever been involved in as a player that didn't happen was winning the World Cup, and then there was no but after it.
Exactly. So
it was just like we won.
You're like, yes, let's party.
There was no hey, we gotta get our massage and we gotta go over video. It was like, hey.
Exactly.
By the way, for any of the young goalkeeper coaches out there listening, or young goalkeepers out there who are listening and going like, oh, well, this is just a basketball guy. No, that's crazy. That's the thing about Sean, is that he's a multifaceted broadcaster. He's done everything, and I think that has actually made you a better journalist, a better broadcaster, because the fact is that you've been able to start seeing those similarities between different sports, the differences, and I'm sure it's benefited you in regards to helping, coach your kids too.
I covered
the whatchamacallit, Steve Nash.
Yeah.
He does soccer broadcast.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He does the Champions League.
I actually, that's what I was going to say, is I started doing, when I was growing up, in the broadcasting business, I started doing covering a bunch of high school sports for Fox Sports West, and I was doing some sideline reporting for high school football, and then I was doing analyst work for basketball, even when Kawhi Leonard was in high school. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, they're like, "Hey, we need a play-by-play guy for some high school soccer games. Can you do that?" Yeah, no, I'll do that. Because I was told very early on, you always say yes, right? And then you figure it out afterwards.
Absolutely.
Do you know how to ride a horse? Yes.
Yeah, exactly. I've done swimming competitions for the World University Games, and people ask how do you prepare for that when you swimming, you never swam in your life, and I was like, yeah, no, I know. So what I did was, YouTube is an amazing place to go, and I pulled up every single one of Michael Phelps's race from the previous Olympics, and I was like, listen, I'm like, oh, so this is an intermediate swim if it's this. Okay, great, write this down. And you start preparing and trying to figure things out. And the same thing could be said for soccer. I'd go back and I'd watch Champion League broadcasts. I'd watch Saskia's team play from the 99 year and watch the way those games were called and be like, okay, there's a couple of terminologies that I need to understand. And why were they using that? Okay, what does this mean? And then as you start incorporating in your broadcast. But I think, as a broadcaster, I always try to celebrate the athletes. And I always think it's their moment. I talk about this all the time when I'm calling games now. Now I only do basketball, but when I'm calling games for college basketball, there may be a game that's a 30-point blowout and somebody gets in the game. It's very easy for us to turn it into the comedy hour at the desk and be like, did you hear what happened the other night? as the game's going on, because at that point in time, it's a 30-point blowout. But one of the things that I've always realized is it might be a 30-point blowout, but there might be somebody that gets put into that game where this is the game that they have for ESPN, and that this is their grandparents are watching that game. And when that player scores, we need to acknowledge that, even in a 40-point blowout, because that's the game that they might show their grandchildren, like, hey, I was playing at Kentucky. We were down 30. My coach put me in, and I scored 6 points in the final 3 minutes of the game. And if you don't celebrate that accomplishment in that moment, that individualism within the realm, then you miss the opportunity to really celebrate the athlete's achievement.
No, and look at it, and from a soccer point of view as well. Like, I mean, you never sub a goalkeeper, number one.
Yeah.
And when you do, usually your team's up by a lot, if you even do, because, or if it's, let's play a team that you're going to beat. All right, you're going to dominate. Maybe your third string goalkeeper, something starts and stuff. There's nothing less important about that person starting, and that truly may be the only game they ever start for the United States.
Speaking
to
a third,
or for the college.
Yeah, speaking to somebody who actually was a third string choice a lot.
As importantly.
I mean, you guys both brought up
but it's just as important, and I agree with that.
You guys brought up a really profound thing that I didn't even think about in regards to. I mean, I feel like I just learned right now in regards from a broadcasting standpoint, and because I can now empathize. I should be able to empathize. I was that person, I was that person who got thrown into that game when you're, down 9-0 or whatever sort of thing, and went in. And, for me, that was a big deal, because it was like my moment to get to showcase that I could play at that level, that sort of a thing. And I think, wow, I mean, you guys are just good human beings, and apparently, I'm more of a jackass who likes to make jokes.
But you would respect that, Mike,
right?
I know. I'm being a little facetious here, but it did make me think about the way I may have presented some things in the past. Let's just say.
I would say this. A couple of things. I know I don't know how much time we have or what we're doing. But
as you said, we've got a lot going on right now. So
I think a lot of goalkeeping, though, and I think a lot of development, in particular the female side of things. And again, I'm learning as we go on this process. I think it's having amazing female coaches, and I think there needs to be more and more opportunities for females to coach at the collegiate level, at the professional level, because the more females that are around, the more it gets passed down. Look, Saskia's got a tremendous background with experiences that people can only dream of experiencing, right? And she's passing that knowledge down, and she's been passing that knowledge down for a long time now. But there needs to be more opportunities given. And I think, I'm incredibly thankful. Like I mentioned, my daughter moved clubs from the Blues up to Real SoCal. And, while she was with the Blues, she had Brandy Hawley, who's a female coach. And that relationship and that bond was played a very big role in my daughter's love of the sport and feeling the connectivity to her coach and understanding of, okay, like this, she expects a lot out of me and I expect a lot out of her. And there's some give and take here, but it helped fuel that passion. And so when you look at people like that, or number of camps that she's gone to where she's had female coaches with her, those people have been incredible inspiration to her in her journey and her path as she tries to forge forward. Look, I tell her this all the time, and she knows this. She has uncommon dreams, just as I'm sure Saskia had as she was coming up. Uncommon dreams. If you have uncommon, that dog has uncommon dreams right now too. But when you have uncommon dreams, you have to have an uncommon work ethic, and you have to have an uncommon drive. Because we can all dream, but if your work ethic and your drive isn't there and doesn't match or exceed what those dreams are, then you're never going to accomplish what you set out for. And I think that's been a big thing. And those females in particular in my daughter's life, and it starts obviously at home with my wife, but those outside of the family, because sometimes you don't want to listen to mom. Like, let's just be honest. My son doesn't want to listen to me. Half the time my daughter doesn't want to listen to me. So you have other people that are positive role models around them that fosters and cultivates such a great experience.
Yeah.
I think there you have it. I'm like,
I want to end on this very somber note after these really inspirational quotes here that we've gotten and these really wonderful, touching moments that we've gotten. And we need to know this information right off the bat before we leave the show. Sean, have you gotten in goal, and how has it gone?
I have gotten in goal.
Okay.
You know, I think part of the fun part of practices is they've had me go in goal a couple of times. And giving my daughter a chance every time they go, hey, you know, you get to take a shot this time in like the training sessions and stuff like that. They're like, Sean, and I'll be like, oh, I'll get in goal. And, you know, I have a little bit bigger reach advantage at 6'6" with 6'10" wingspan. But when my daughter scores on me, trust me, she lets me know. And I do a lot of things. Here's what I will not do when I'm in goal right now at 42 years of age: dive. I am not diving, even if it's my daughter's shot. Like, if I can get there and use my reach, like, I'm good. If I got to jump, I'm going to jump. There is 0% chance that I'm selling out and diving to stop one of my daughter's shots. And here's the reason why. I did a piece at Stanford when I was at ESPN, where we did my home court week. And the basketball program there at the time was kind of struggling. And Stanford wasn't as their home court isn't necessarily as unique in basketball as it is other places. What I think is very unique about Stanford is the overall quality of their athletic department. And so I was like, okay, so here's what we're going to do. I want to kick a field goal on the football field. I want to try to hit a fastball from a softball pitcher. I want to, try to stop a goal from a soccer player. And so the soccer player part, they're like, okay, good. So they gave me the goalkeeping jersey and everything. And I go out there and I'm like, I'm going to sell out because I want this to look good for television, right? Like, I got to go all out. They set it up at the PK spot. The forward at the time for Stanford's women's soccer team lines up with the male counterpart. The male shoots first and kind of shoots a soft one, and I catch it. I'm like, ho, 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 ha, ha, ha. And then she drills it. And I dove. And as I dove, I gave myself whiplash. Because when I hit, I hard landed on my shoulder. My head goes boom like this.
Oh.
And I snapped my neck. And I could not move during the broadcast. Uh-huh. And like I was taking like medical grade like ibuprofen and trying to get muscle relaxing and like massages because and it was like, okay, I'm never diving again in goal.
You know how I knew that right away? Because if you keep your eyes on the ball, you automatically control your neck.
Yeah, see, I didn't know that, and you weren't teaching me at the time, and I wasn't part of this podcast.
Yeah,
so I took that injury and said, never diving.
Wham!
That's why I always say nose to chin has to go to the ball because it keeps your eyes on the ball and keep your shape. Keep your shape forward. Yep.
So you don't get whiplash. But as soon as I was like, oh man.
Oh man, that must be so painful. Oh wow.
It was bad. It was bad.
Is there video of that?
Bad.
Is there video of that?
There is video.
Oh, please.
Video. I don't know.
Can you please post that and tag us?
I'd have to, you know what? I'll reach out to the producer that did it and see if he has it still. Cause it was probably about 6 years ago.
Oh man. If we could use that in promos for this, that would be incredible. I don't
dive anymore just cause it takes me too long to get back up.
Let's be honest. People ask me all the time, do you still play basketball? I said, no, I golf. I coach basketball. I'll train you in basketball, but I'm not playing basketball. I like my Achilles tendons too much.
Am I the only idiot who's still out there playing? Man,
yes.
Okay.
Yes, you are.
Yes.
It's fun. I'm actually going to go do a training session after this in my my living room here, and by that I mean, my dad's living room with all my nephew's baby toys in the way. So I'm going to use those as cones. It's gonna be fun. All right, guys, we've been going for a while here. Sean, if anybody out there wants to reach out to you, obviously you've got a big following in regards to college basketball. But, there's probably a lot of people out there that didn't know that you had this wealth of knowledge in regards to advice for, parents of soccer goalkeepers. I think you could be a really valuable resource because you can empathize, and also you're coming up from the same point of view as them, as opposed to sometimes coming from someone like ourselves who's in the game. It's a little bit different than coming from somebody who's in the same boat as they are. And that's one of the reasons why a few weeks ago we had actually a parent come on in regards to talking about what to do with their kids during quarantine and all that, because they can understand a little bit more. So Twitter is the best place for you, right? Is that
Twitter and Instagram? Instagram probably. I'm more active on Instagram.
Okay.
That's at Farnham ESPN. Really simple, just my last name with ESPN attached to the back half of it, and you can follow me there on Instagram. And I'm always willing to help. I mean, I mentor and work with a lot of athletes on their college decisions and whatnot and understand the process. And it's not about pushing kids to any college. It's about what is personally best. Like, I think a lot of the transfer rates that we see right now across the board in college has to do with the fact that during the recruiting process, you fall in love with the name and not understanding A, the program, B, how you fit in that program, C, what the depth looks like in that program.
100%.
Do you like the coaching style? Like, I always laugh. There's a coach in college basketball that's really demonstrative and yells a lot. But if you go through 4 years and you ask anybody that played for his program, they're like, I love him. Like, he turned me into a man. He taught me everything I need. I will go to war with this guy for the rest of my life. Like, he's a father figure in my life. But there's other recruits that, like, show up. They go on their official visit. They watch a practice, and then they come to play for him, and they're like, I can't believe he yells a lot.
Yeah.
What were you doing on your recruiting trip?
Right. You're just obsessed with the name.
Right. Or like, hey, like, I'm from California, but this is a big program and it's across on the East Coast. Yeah, but can you actually see yourself living there? Are you comfortable living there for 4 years? Or if you're on the East Coast coming west,
absolutely.
Are you comfortable? It doesn't matter. There's a lot of different layers to making a college decision. I've been fortunate enough to be asked to be a mentor to a lot of really good high school basketball players that have gone on and played in college. And I enjoy that aspect of it because I think making the right decision puts you in the best situation for you to be successful. And sometimes we forget about that. It's not the biggest name. It's the best situation that will help you reach your own personal goals within the team concept. And I think that's important to understand.
Yeah. I mean, I can't tell. I mean, I can't tell you how important it is that people have mentors and people guiding them like that during that decision, because I know for myself personally, I was looking at the logo and I was looking at how cool that jersey looked and how successful that program was. And that was my first priority, as opposed to thinking about, like, how did I fit into the dynamic of that team? And that's why I ended up transferring. So, you know.
Well, and look, for me, I mean, look, when I came out of high school, like, I knew I wasn't going to be an NBA player. So, I mean, I could have gone.
I don't know. I saw that state championship, man. That state championship.
I could have gone to a lot of other places and played a much larger role than I did, but I looked at it from a life perspective of what I wanted out of college. Yeah. And I've told people a million times, there is no way I'm calling games and having the platform I have at ESPN without going to a college like UCLA. That networking and exposure, and even though I played with 7 pros, I wasn't one of them. You still get that exposure and experience. And I wanted to get a great education. I wanted to have a chance to win a national championship and be part of something that was way bigger than me. And that's why I chose UCLA. And at the end of the day, it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. It's led to so many things that are positive and have happened in my life.
Yeah. I mean, I was number 1 recruited goalkeeper in the country, and I went to Rutgers, you know, and by far one of the best schools in the country. And at that time, not one of the best soccer programs. We were top 20, but I was being recruited by, all the top 5. And that was part of my decision. I'm from Princeton, New Jersey. I wanted to be near home. I wanted to go to a great school. I loved the program. I loved, the people that were there, the coaches, and it was a whole rounded decision. So.
Well, Sean, before we go, I just want to let you know that I remember back, when I was a kid and during that De La Salle run your senior year, and when people said that you were going to go to UCLA and you were going to walk on at UCLA, and I'm sure you remember this, people saying, oh, there's no way Sean Farnham's ever going to play at UCLA. That's ridiculous. What a terrible idea on his part or whatever. And I'm just glad that you got so much out of it and you were able to prove everybody wrong and create such a fantastic career. And honestly, what you do for the game is just so important to all of us out there who are fans of the game and work in sports in general, because
I appreciate
extremely
that
important, all right, guys, that's all the time on Inside the 18. Remember,
do you need a moment?
I just wanted to be honest. I wanted to be honest for a second. I know. Remember, guys, contact at insidethe18media.com. 18, that is the number 18media.com. If you have a guest suggestion or a topic suggestion, at Goalkeeper Podcast on all social media platforms. All right, guys, that's it. We will see you later. We're out.
Bye, guys.